the green cape, folks? What would you say? Why would you choose the green cape? I know you may look good in green. Maybe that was what you were. But more substantive reasons as to why you would choose the green cape. Thoughts? Yes, in the back. If you do enough good, eventually it'll outweigh the bad. Okay? Other thoughts to add to that? Yes?
The green is a straight line. The red is a deficit.
Okay.
So one is one of the sense of community strength as opposed to clinical pathology.
And since this is a conference whose theme is positive psychology and strengths, the right answer is obviously green. So you guys... All right, very good. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Donna.
But maybe what we should say is if you fight injustice, you're going to keep fighting injustice over and over again on many fronts unless you change the underlying relationships and institutions out of which the injustice comes. And that's the green part.
Okay. So sometimes when we're fighting, we're putting out these fires and we don't know what's causing the fires. We can just be sort of perpetuating the situation which is causing the problem in the first place, right? One illustration of this is I'd like all of you, this is just a little sort of sub-thought experiment. Please, I would like no one in the room to think about a white bear. Please, no one think about a white bear. Do not think about a white bear. Put on your red cape and do not think about a white bear. Who's still thinking about a white bear? Could I see your hands, please? All right. Well, anyway. One of the people who was in the picture with me and my great-grandfather was my older brother, Dan. And he is a genius. I grew up with a genius. He's a genius at making up games. I don't know if you know somebody like this, but we would be in the most boring places, in the smallest environments, not much room to play. And if we had a ball of any sort, it could be a soccer ball, it could be a wiffle ball, it could be a ping pong ball, anything, he would be able to make it into a game. Now he was almost 5 years older than I, and he was more athletic than I. So that means he had to handicap himself in such a way that we could actually have a lot of. How many of you are thinking about a white bear right now? Okay, so what happens sometimes when we focus on what we don't want is that's what we get. And I don't mean to be facile about this, but sometimes that's what happens in certain contexts, in certain situations. Sometimes what we need to do is shift the focus and move to what we want, and that does interesting things to our brains and moves us in those directions. One more example. Consider the example, consider if we were trying to eliminate violence in the world and we wanted to have harmony in the world. And let's say that we tried the red cape approach. And so we worked really hard to eliminate violence. There's no more violence in the world. Would harmony be pervasive? Not necessarily, right? There could be still people angry with each other. They just couldn't come to blows about it, right? Let's flip that around. What if, using our green capes, we were able to bring harmony, so everyone felt harmoniously toward each other? Would there be violence? No, not if they really felt harmoniously toward each other. They would bump each other accidentally and say, "Oh, I'm so terribly sorry. I really am sorry about that." And they would never come to blows. So at least there are some cases, and I've chosen these cases carefully, but there are at least some cases where focusing on the green cape can actually have red cape consequences as well. The thing I want to suggest here, at least, is that these processes are different, right? Would you agree that a red cape process is different from a green cape process? If my focus is on what's wrong with this situation, how can I fix it, that's a very different kind of focus than what's right with this situation, what opportunities are here, how can I enhance it, and so forth, right? So we can at least conclude that at this point. This brings me now to be able to share with you what I believe is the fundamental principle of positive psychology. This is very technical, so try to write it down and catch it as you can. You can't be happy without a green cape. Or in slightly more technical terms, happiness is not the same thing as the absence of unhappiness. So we can work and work and work to get rid of unhappiness, but that doesn't mean that we've necessarily succeeded in creating happiness. Let's take a few examples to make this a little bit more clear. You go to the doctor. physical doctor. The doctor gives you every test she or he has in their arsenal, and they can detect absolutely no disease in your body. And they say to you, you have no illness whatsoever. Are you healthy? Well, not according to the World Health Organization, that says that health has to go beyond the mere absence of disease to the flourishing of these other conditions, right? So there's always something we could be doing more. We could be exercising more to tone up our muscles to get in better shape. Maybe we need to get better sleep and better diet, these kinds of things which may not have shown up as disease yet, but which may be room for improvement in that process. Mental health. You go to the psychologist or a psychiatrist or psychologist, and they say to you, absolutely no mental illness. You are free of mental disease. Are you then mentally healthy? Well, again, the same thing. Which one of us couldn't be even more mentally healthy than we are now, right? Being able to focus our minds even more on what we would like to focus on, for example. Same thing with regard to emotions. So what are the emotions that we typically think of as being the negative emotions? What are some examples? Sadness, fear, anger, guilt, shame, anxiety. Okay, what are some of the emotions that we tend to think of as the positive emotions? Joy. Took you a while to get there. The negative ones, you guys are like, oh yeah, fear, anger, anxiety. The positive ones, oh yeah, there are some. Let's see, what would they be? Right, so joy, what else?
Delight.
Gratitude, delight, love.
Anger, guilt, shame.
The ones that we typically tend to think of as the positive. And what happens then, so let's say that we were able to make it such that we didn't experience these quote-unquote negative emotions. No more anger, fear, guilt, all that kind of stuff. Would we automatically start to feel joy and love and tranquility? It's not an automatic thing, right? Those are two separate processes. And I don't want to get into a discussion about when it's appropriate to feel what. That's why I say positive and negative in scare quotes, because I know there is real value in emotions that we don't necessarily like the way they feel. But my point here is that these are different processes. Feeling a negative emotion is different from feeling a positive emotion. The same thing with strengths, right? You all know this because you're at this conference. But you know, if I have a pitcher, for example, who's a bad batter, but he's got a wonderful fastball, and I say, you need to work on that batting, and I put him in the batting cage, and he marginally improves his batting, what does that do to his fastball? Nothing good, and maybe a little bit bad because he hasn't been practicing his fastball, right? So again, I'm not here to debate whether pitchers should or should not be, have to bat and so forth. It's just a question of, these are different processes, right? It happens the same way with the Gallup strengths or the positive psychology values and action strengths. Meaning, you can find somebody who is filled with angst about their life, a philosopher, for example, and you can help them to a point where they're no longer angst-ridden. Does that mean they now have purpose in their life? Not necessarily, right? So again, those are two different things. Okay, here's a question for you. If you can't be happy without a green cape, can you be happy without a red cape? Do you need a red cape to be happy? Is all you need a green cape? What do you think? There's a lot of deliberation going on at this point. The answer to this one isn't quite as clear, Professor. I knew the green one. That was clear by the conference title, but this one I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think that sometimes anger is quite appropriate.
Anger is quite what?
Quite appropriate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Okay.
You need that in order to act.
Good. Okay, so there's some context in which perhaps it's very good to have one of these what I call negative emotions, just as a shortcut way of talking. And there are certain situations in which it's important to have that. Could we get around that by just looking at opportunities and joy and tranquility and stuff and using that, do you think? Good. So let's take another example to try to make that a little bit clearer. Comparing red cape versus green cape thinking. Take a case of appendicitis. Suddenly I have a pain in my abdomen, and I go to the doctor, and the doctor says, I have acute appendicitis, I need my, and so this is what's going on. And I run into a friend of mine, and Gina says, James, you look a little peaked today. Have you been to the gym today? Have you been eating your vegetables?